Let's compare a categorical variable with a quantitative variable. So I have some data here from the student survey y'all took. Thank you for taking that. And I just pulled out the column of male data, so that variable, and the column of how much sleep someone gets on average in hours. And I think first I'll do is highlight the data. Control-Shift down arrow should go to the bottom of the list. You can see the last female here didn't enter a number. That's okay. But I want to sort this before I proceed. So usually sort range has a header row. And yeah, let's sort by gender. So the male's at the bottom, one blank female. And sometimes a blank like that is treated as a 0. Sometimes it's ignored depending on the software. So I think since I'm going to use a couple of different software packages, I'm just going to delete that entry here. Remember, don't ever delete data from the original data set, only in copies that you're messing around with. Okay, and then hopefully these numbers are reasonable. Somebody didn't accidentally enter a number that doesn't work. If I'm at the bottom here, I can do Shift left arrow and then Control Shift up arrow to go to the top of the list. And I am going to copy that and go to Stat Key. One way we can compare, again, a categorical, gender, and a quantitative, hours of sleep per night, is by using BoxPlots. So we'll make a box plot for the females, which uses our 5-number summary, min, just a reminder about that, min, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and max. And we can get those here in a little bit too. Just a reminder on how spreadsheet does it. But let's go to Stat Key first. It's a little easier. So first step, again, get all your data, copy it, and then go find Stat Key. So once we're at Stat Key, we want to do one quantitative and one categorical variable. And they have several examples here from some of their data sets. And I'm just going to edit their data, highlight all of it. And unfortunately, the Control-Shift down arrow does not work here. So I'm just holding Shift and down arrow to get them all. And there's a lot of them. There we go. Delete them first, and then Control-V, paste your data in, and double check, do you really have a header row? Otherwise, it'll take whatever the first one is, like if female 5.5 was at the top, it would make that a header, and I would lose one piece of data. So always pay attention to the fine print. And let's blow this up a little bit. That should be good. So here they give me summary statistics for all of them quickly, so I don't have to enter all the formulas like I do in a spreadsheet. But often I have a pre-built spreadsheet that I can just dump stuff into. And I'll show you how to set that up in a moment. And it's already been presented in previous videos. So right away they present this dot plot. So we can see in the dot plot there's a wider range for the females. We have a female that claims to have 3 hours of sleep tonight and several that have 10. Males have a much narrower range. So it could be the 3 and the 4 is an error, but could be true. So I hope you don't have 3 or 4 hours of sleep. That's not healthy. Could do a histogram. And again, comparatively, we seem to have way more females. Notice the size of the stack for the females is much greater. There's 104 females in the sample and 33 males. So students in my classes tend to be more female than male, or students that filled out the survey tend to be more female or male. I don't know the answer to that question at the moment. And we could play around with the boundaries on each of these with the set limits. Box plots, what I really want here. So the box plot gives us the 5-number summary. So it's a graph of the min, Q1, median, Q3, and maximum. So we can see here that the middle 50% of males and females are pretty similar. However, there's a much longer left tail, left whisker, and right whisker on the females than the males. So I can say there's much more variation for the female data. So let's copy this and make some observations. Remember in StatKey, the only way to use a graph like this is to take a screenshot. So whatever your screenshot tool is on your computer, here's mine. And I just want to grab part of my screen here, the labels, the boxes, and the numbers. And if you're putting this into a Google Doc, say, you could copy it and paste it. Some programs you have to save it and then upload it. So be careful with that. Just going to paste it into my notebook here. All right, so what can we say about this? First observation I made is that middle 50% here, right, from Q1 to Q3. So remember, quartiles are positions in the data that mark. For example, Q1 is marks the first quarter. That quartile is a number that marks the first 25% of data. So 25% of males slept between 6 hours and 5 hours. 25% of males, remember this one right here is the median, slept between 6 and 7 hours. And 25% of males between 7 and 8. And then 25% between 8 and 9-ish over there. So again, my first observation looking at this is the middle 50% of males and females slept between 6 and 8 hours. So we're just looking, based on this, what kind of observations can we make about the differences between the two categories here. Another observation we could make here is that there's a much wider range of hours of sleep for the females. So both these observations are related to the spread of the data. And remember, we have several ways to talk about spread. When we're talking about these positional measurements, which are different than, say, mean and standard deviation, with the positional measurements, our measures for spread are range and IQR. And the IQR for both males and females is the same. The IQR is the length of that middle 50%. So our IQR would be 8 minus 6, or 2, for both males and females. Right? So they have the same interquartile range. I've basically stated that with that right there. So what observations could you make about the similarities and differences between the males and females' hours of sleep? So I'm going to let you think about some other options. Thanks for playing with me. Bye-bye.